My sister and I have an age gap of 11 years. I'm 36 and she's 25. Growing up, I was always there for her, often taking the fall when she messed up or helping her get out of trouble. Our parents were young when they had me, and then much older when they had her. So she was the youngest and, as a result, spoiled. I never minded this dynamic, even as she got older and developed a somewhat entitled attitude. I actually supported her in everything, including convincing our parents to let her follow her dream of becoming an actress, even though they were skeptical of such an unstable career. She eventually enrolled in film school with my support, and I promised our parents that I'd always have her back if things didn't work out. Over the years, I played a role in her getting away with things. Late nights out, trips with friends, even concerts far from home. I never resented it. I loved her and wanted to make her life easier. However, as time passed, her behavior became more self-centered, rude, and increasingly disrespectful. Even so, I never anticipated how bad things would get, especially with her recent wedding. Her boyfriend, now her husband, proposed about 8 months ago, and the family was excited. But for reasons that seemed small to me, I was not invited to the wedding. The reason? A petty disagreement over money. I was overjoyed when my sister got engaged and offered to help her with the wedding dress. I had a friend who owns a bridal boutique, and she offered us a substantial discount. My sister, however, had her eyes set on a designer gown that cost a whopping $8,000. I wasn't opposed to splurging a little for her, but I'd already planned to gift her an extravagant honeymoon in Europe, a surprise she would cherish forever. It seemed excessive to spend $8,000 on a dress she would only wear once when I was already making such a big commitment to the honeymoon. I suggested she get a beautiful custom-made dress through my friend at a much more reasonable price. She refused. She only wanted the designer label and nothing else, and when I stood firm, the tension escalated. I thought she might cool off, but instead, she shut me out entirely after our disagreement. A week passed, and I considered calling her to explain, but then she beat me to it. When she called, I expected an apology or at least an explanation. Instead, she began accusing me of being stingy. She even made a hurtful comment about how I didn't have a husband or children, implying that I had no need for my money. I've never been sensitive about my decision to remain single and child-free, but the way she used it as an attack stung deeply. It was a low blow, especially coming from someone who knew how much it bothered me. She continued, saying I was jealous of her wedding and life because I was pushing 40 and still single. This hit me harder than I'd anticipated. I told her she could never speak to me that way, especially when I had already offered to pay for her dress in the first place. But she didn't care. She accused me of being envious of her because she was getting married and I wasn't. Her words cut deeper than I expected from someone I had always been there for, and I ended the call. I couldn't deal with the disrespect anymore. I didn't talk to her for the next few days, and honestly, I wasn't sure what to do next. My feelings were hurt, and I couldn't understand how things had spiraled so far over something that, to me, seemed so trivial in the grand scheme of everything I had done for her. I was devastated after the fight with my sister. Her words were cruel and hurtful, and I couldn't believe that the sister I'd done so much for, the one I had always supported and tried to make happy, was now using such venomous words to wound me, all over something as trivial as a wedding dress. I cried, feeling utterly betrayed. We didn't speak after that, but our parents reassured me that things would be okay. They believed she would eventually come around, but I couldn't shake the feeling that things would never be the same. Months passed without any contact from her. It was around 2 months later when I realized I hadn't received a wedding invitation, while all of our other relatives had. That hit me like a ton of bricks. The cold reality that she had no intention of inviting me, especially after all I had done for her, stung deeply. I had been willing to go above and beyond for her wedding, including planning a honeymoon of her dreams, but now it felt like everything I had done for her meant nothing. After weeks of processing the situation, I made a decision to cut ties with her. She had become a self-centered, narcissistic individual, and I couldn't keep enabling her behavior. I blocked her on all social media and stopped speaking to her completely. I did, however, maintain communication with our parents. A couple of months ago, we went out for dinner, and after a few too many drinks, I confided in them about the real reason I had refused to buy her the expensive dress. I told them about the surprise honeymoon I had planned for her, which was my intended gift. I made them promise not to tell her, but as it turned out, they broke that promise. The morning of my sister's wedding, I was rudely awakened by the doorbell at 6 a.m. I was completely unprepared and shocked to see her standing there. We hadn't spoken in months, and I couldn't understand why she would suddenly show up at my door. I didn't open it, but I saw her through the intercom. I called her, asking what she was doing there. She answered the phone sweetly, politely requesting that I let her in. I wasn't having it. I had no interest in seeing her, especially not after everything that had transpired. She wasn't a teenager anymore. She knew exactly what she was saying when she disrespected me. I hadn't forgotten or forgiven her for the things she had said. During the phone call, she didn't apologize for her past behavior, but told me she had come to personally invite me to her wedding to make amends. I was confused and asked her if she had spoken to Mom, knowing that our mother must have shared with her the honeymoon gift I had planned. After a moment of hesitation, my sister admitted that she knew about the Europe trip and had come to invite me because she felt guilty. If she hadn't found out about the gift, she would have never bothered to show up at my door. This was a classic move from her, and it infuriated me even more. I told her to leave because her invitation was far too little, far too late. But she had the audacity to argue with me, saying I couldn't just send her away like that on her wedding day. She claimed that it was a big deal for her to come to me personally, and that I was being petty for not accepting her invitation. That was the last straw. I snapped, telling her that I couldn't care less whether I was at her wedding or not. Her behavior had already made it clear where I stood with her. She kept arguing on the phone, calling me arrogant and accusing me of overreacting. I ended the call, not wanting to waste any more time on her. A moment later, I heard her scream and curse at me from outside, even kicking my door. I briefly considered calling the police, but it was early in the morning and I was still half asleep. I heard her drive away and went back to bed, stewing over everything that had just happened. A few hours later, I woke up to my phone buzzing. I answered a call from an unknown number, thinking it might be work-related, only to be greeted by my sister's husband and a chorus of curses. He had managed to rally their friends to join in, all of them yelling and insulting me at the top of their lungs. I could barely process what was happening, as they all mocked me at once. I hung up the phone, stunned and angry. After a few minutes, I called my mother to figure out what was going on. She apologized, saying she had told my sister about the honeymoon gift the night before, thinking it might help my sister realize her mistake. She also expressed regret for breaking my trust and telling my sister, but at that point, it was too late. As for the call from my sister and her husband, my mother claimed she didn't know about it, as she had been busy taking wedding photos and wasn't nearby when it happened. Still, I wasn't surprised. This kind of petty, childish behavior was exactly what I had come to expect from my sister. I was angry at my mother too, but I understood that her intentions had been good, so I forgave her. I didn't know what to do next. I could have let it go, but after everything, I wanted to do something for myself. So, in an act of defiance and frustration, I booked a trip to Europe, an adventure I had always wanted to take. I invited a close friend, and together, we set off for an unforgettable vacation. This trip wasn't just about getting back at my sister, though. It was also a way for me to break free from the limitations I had put on myself and embrace a little spontaneity. 3 days ago, my friend and I arrived in France. I've been sharing our adventure on social media, knowing that my sister or her friends would eventually see it. I didn't remove anyone from her circle, intentionally leaving them in the loop so they could see how I was spending my time, far from the petty drama she tried to drag me into. Now, for the first time in a long while, I feel like I'm doing something just for me. I posted about my Europe trip, and of course, it didn't take long for someone to tell my sister. My mother called me this morning, and I could hear the concern in her voice. She said my sister had been devastated, crying for hours after seeing my post online. My mother understood why I'd gone on the trip and why I posted about it, but she also called me out for being petty. She said I should have considered the 11-year age gap between my sister and me before taking things so far. According to my mother, my sister was inconsolable, and everyone, our relatives, some of my friends, thought I was wrong for rubbing it in my sister's face. Honestly, I've been torn. I never wanted to be cruel, but it felt like, after everything, I deserved this moment for myself. I needed to know, am I the jerk for showing off my vacation in my sister's face after she went no contact with me because I wouldn't pay for her wedding dress? Update 1. Hey everyone. Thank you so much for all the supportive comments. I truly appreciate it. It means a lot to hear kind things from so many of you. Some of you mentioned that I was foolish for doing so much for my sister, and honestly, I get it. I went overboard, I spoiled her, and I became a bit of a pushover. I thought she, as family, would never treat me the way she treated others, but I was wrong. I've been reflecting, and it's become clear to me that my parents have treated us very differently because of our age gap. Just because I'm 11 years older doesn't mean my feelings should matter less. When I was upset because she wouldn't talk to me and insulted me over the dress, my parents took a hands-off approach, saying it was a personal issue they didn't want to meddle in. But now that my sister is upset, everyone's getting involved. It feels so unfair. I haven't confronted them about it yet, but I'm tempted to bring it up if my mother calls again. It's been almost 4 days since our last conversation, and I have a feeling either she or my dad will reach out soon. During that last call, I could tell my dad had a lot to say, but he kept quiet because he didn't want to get tangled in the drama. It feels exhausting, honestly. I'm still on my trip, trying to enjoy myself, but inside I'm furious. I don't want to bring my friend into all this drama, so I've kept it to myself until now. Thanks for listening. Update 2. Hi Reddit. My mom finally called me today after almost 3 weeks. She didn't apologize. She called to tell me that my dad and she had decided it was best for us not to meet for a while, so my sister wouldn't be further upset. Basically, my feelings don't matter as long as my sister's feelings are preserved. And then, to top it off, she told me that she and my dad were sponsoring my sister's trip to Bali because my sister was too upset about everything. So I don't need to worry about feeling guilty anymore. I couldn't hold it in anymore, so I snapped at her. I told her it was nice that she was finally being proactive and taking an interest in her daughter's life. If that's what she wanted to call it, meddling in her personal affairs. I reminded her how I could have used that same love and support when I was upset over being treated badly by my sister over a stupid dress. Then I hung up on her. My dad texted me right after to say that my behavior toward my mother wasn't acceptable and that I needed to fix my attitude if I wanted any chance of maintaining a relationship with the family. I told him to cry me a river and blocked him. I've had enough. I'm done letting my family interrupt my holiday. What's the point? Fighting for their attention isn't going to make them like me again. I'm almost 40. For God's sake. I don't need these high school level games. I spent a lot of money on this trip and I'm going to enjoy it. I hadn't told my friend any of this until now because I didn't want to ruin the vibe of the trip or burden him with my family's drama. But today I told him everything. He reassured me that I wasn't in the wrong here, that my family clearly had a favorite and it wasn't me. He reminded me that it's time to move on from them. I've been holding out hope that my sister and parents would come around, but now I know they won't and I'm okay with it. Update 3. Hey guys, I'm back from my trip after almost 6 weeks of traveling around Europe. I can't even begin to explain how transformative this experience was. I feel like a completely new person, and honestly, that's probably why I don't care that my parents have disinherited me. It's okay. I make enough on my own to get by. And here's something unexpected. The friend I went on this trip with, we're together now. He and I have been friends for almost 8 years, and about a week ago, We were drinking wine when he confessed that he had a crush on me for ages. I was surprised but secretly thrilled. I had feelings for him too, but was afraid to say anything because I didn't want to risk ruining our friendship. Now, we're together, and I couldn't be happier. Honestly, I'm so glad I went on this trip. Revenge on my sister? Revenge on my parents? Honestly, I don't care. I needed this time for myself more than anything.